Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Anora. This was directed by Shawn Baker. Baker is somebody that I deeply admire as an artist, and I think a lot of film fans feel the same way. I think I've reviewed his last 3 films, and all of them are straight up bangers. They're all, I think, instant classics. The crowning achievement of which I think was his most recent film previous to this one, and I might be in the minority on that, but it was Red Rocket, and that film, honestly, it might be a best of the decade contender for me. I've described Baker as a gutter poet. He's somebody who likes to find, like dingy, dark, wet, seedy, unlikely street corners of maybe some urban city or maybe some old panhandle town. And not only does he embrace it, but he kind of turns the world inside out in a way, and he approaches his characters without the same judgment that you normally get from other screenwriters, filmmakers. It feels like he has the utmost sympathy, I think, for the characters and the pain that is weighing at the center of their world, the aches within whatever brash, aggressive outer exterior these characters, put on for us in order to survive. I would say all of the protagonists in Baker works that I have seen, despite their situations, they are always survivors that just continue to tread. Anora, though, I would say is a lot more ambitious than his previous works. He's always kind of flirted, I think, with breaking through into the Hollywood mainstream, and when I mean the mainstream, I mean like Academy acclaim and all of that. But I do think this might be his Charlie XCX moment where he breaks through with a little bit more commercial appeal, and he's not just that independent name that's tossed around by the cinephiles. Oh, what to say about this film, this dizzying, dark, profound experience. I think it taps into a lot of the things that Baker has dealt with either peripherally or directly in a lot of his films. It's a portrait of somebody reaching for some discernible aspect of the American dream that they can have for themselves, but it's always seen through the eyes of somebody that is a reject from society, where the odds are going to be very against them. This film is as radiant and valiant and devastating, I think, as its main character at the center. This is a movie about a sex worker who lives in Brooklyn, and it is played by the startling Mikey Madison, a woman who is as intoxicating and mysterious as she is a mess, as she is vulnerable at times. This movie feels like she is smiling at you and taking you by the hand, and it's like you can see the glitter in her hair catching in the light. You have no idea where she's going to take you. You have a feeling it's probably not going to end well, but you have to go. I think this story embodies that sad need to embrace, again, a sense of American idealism. It's a fairy tale that we know is so unrealistic, and yet no matter how seasoned you become, no matter how rough around the edges you become, you still want it, like you do as a child. As you can imagine, she is spirited and vivacious, she's charming, all of those things, but she has to be loud and abrasive, because, again, she's a survivor. But she gets the call to adventure of her life when she meets this young man who is the son of a Russian, very rich businessman. He instantly takes a liking to her, and in a very short amount of time, he decides he wants to marry her, and she says yes. I think Baker's so multifaceted as a director. Yes, he's somebody who clearly wants to show us like an honest, kind of bloody, battered side of his characters. It's like more gritty, but yet he is also such a softie at heart. I mean, he is a hopeless romantic, I think, just like a lot of his characters are to varying degrees. No matter what is happening on screen, in Baker films, they just have this pep. It's like this fizz. It's bubbly. It's bright. It's pungent. It feels like you're just, opening like that crisp soda on a hot summer day. Yet he brings in all of these more traditional elements that I think are reminiscent of the great American classics, this kind of ping-pongy, fast-paced screwball comedy type of quality that you saw in the 1930s, the 1940s. This movie, especially in the middle, the midsection, it has this kind of coked up energy that, yeah, it's reminiscent of like His Girl Friday by Howard Hawks. I think a lot of people probably find Baker akin to a lot of Italian neorealist filmmakers, and I can certainly understand that as well, but I honestly consider him more to be like Federico Fellini, who, yes, obviously he's rooted in Italian neorealism, and there's a lot of that influence in his work, but at a certain point he starts to deviate. He becomes more colorful, more soulful, more abstract, and maybe not to the same degree, but there's certainly elements of that, I think, in Shawn Baker. And so even though a lot of people are comparing this film to something like Pretty Woman, obviously I can see why, to me I'm thinking more about movies like Nights of Cabiria, which is a Fellini film, and it's a very similar story with a knockout performance at the center of it. Anora, though, I would say is more of a love story. It's more focused on a love story. As I said, it is a tragedy that is peppered with those screwball comedy elements. This film is like watching something beautiful and delicate wilt from the center of it. Or it's like watching somebody who's adorned in all of these diamonds, or what they think are diamonds, but it's actually all fake. It's cheap. And so in that moment, they instantly feel humiliated and like a fool. But because Baker's characters are so rich and so fully rendered as if they were plucked straight from the streets of reality, like I said, it's like we believe in them no matter when the film is darting into all of these different tonal shifts. For the most part, it takes place over the period of like one day, over one wild bender of a night, and it slowly layers into something that is more serious. Baker is astounding at casting. He's interested more in interesting people over, maybe glamour like we're used to seeing. I think it's one of his greatest strengths, and I know that he has credited his wife and their creative collaborations there with a lot of it, and that's great. He's done it again with this film. It's just how casual the actors are with the roles and how open-minded they are when it comes to all of these kind of bizarre things they're asked to do. That, I think, is why the film works, is what keeps it from going off the rails. At times, the acting feels virtuosic, and at other times, it's so invisible and so naturalistic, and I think that's amazing. And I think Baker cleverly, again, he layers in the emotions, like I was saying before, where they're always in our peripherals. He never is losing sight of that goal. But I will say, when I compare this film to some of the previous films that I had mentioned before, when it comes to Baker, yes, obviously this movie, he's trying to be more ambitious. There's more of an attempt to be accessible, but I think in doing so, it becomes just a little bit too glossy, a little bit removed. It's missing just a little bit of that defined authenticity and that freedom that I love so much in his other works. Now, I'm nitpicking, but because I've seen those other films, obviously I have a high standard for him. There's something slightly removed from the world building and the characters when it comes to the tonal shifts, where maybe some of the screwball comedy, as an example, isn't quite as convincing as some of the other movies he's had in the past when it comes to that kind of comedy. I think of a movie like Tangerine as an example, and obviously I think of a movie like Red Rocket. I think that one maybe found the best balance, again, between that comedy and that tragedy, that idealism and realism. There's just slight air pockets now and again when it comes to this film slowly revealing that vulnerability. I think I would have liked to see maybe more insight into Anora's life, and I don't mean we need some like tragic backstory or anything like that. I just mean be a fly on the wall, hang out in her world with her a little bit more, get to know her friends and her coworkers. It's like you see flashes of that here and there, but I think, more of that would have helped buffer the film emotionally, particularly in that third act. But at the same time, I think part of her removal and the way that we learn about her character through unlikely situations is kind of refreshing. The fact that this character is always out of her element in this movie and that she's always trying to adapt. It's like we're getting insight into her slowly. She's in this random odyssey situation surrounded by all of these people that she doesn't know. And so naturally she doesn't have the ability to express herself, but also just, I think in life, she's not the type of person that people are going to typically ask, how are you feeling? Are you all right? So yeah, there's serendipity happening, and yet, the inevitability that comes out of that is slowly bleeding out. So I don't know, I'll have to watch this movie again and see how I feel about it a second time. I'm not going to give away the ending or anything, don't worry, but I will say the ending of this film wrecked me. It absolutely wrecked me, and it makes you realize just how well the film builds those emotions where it's like you can't even realize that it's being done. If you are a Shawn Baker fan, you have to see this film, no question about it. I want to see Red Rocket again. I'd love to maybe do a double feature with these two films and compare them, because there's a lot I think you could say. But as an emotional experience, this one, at the end of it, it rings with such emotion, such vitality and honesty, more than almost any film this year. I was wrecked by the final shot in the same way I felt wrecked by the final shot at the end of Nights of Cabiria, where Julieta Messina, looks straight into the camera and smiles as, her makeup is running. This is one of the best films of the year, with some of the best performances of the year made by one of our great American filmmakers. So I don't know what else you need from me here. That is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.